Hey there, listeners. I am joined today by fellow certified sex coach, Julia Satterlee. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kristen. I'm so excited to be here. I love our topic. I love talking with you. Getting to work with a fellow sexologist is always a great time. So thanks so much for
Yes,
having me.
absolutely. So it was really funny. I met you virtually through the pandemic because of Sex Coach U. And then I went to Atlanta for Sex Down South. And there was this moment like a woman sat next to me. I'm like, gosh, she looks familiar because I'm good with faces, not as great with names. And then I asked her to like watch my backpack while I went to the bathroom and then came back and then we finally put two and two together. Then we knew each other. But I was looking at you so hardcore going like, how do I know her? How do I know her? How do I know her?
Same, same. Like I know her from somewhere, but I don't want to make it weird. Where is it that I know
Right?
her from?
And sometimes profile pictures are just so little and that's the only context I have for somebody and so yeah, it was just a really funny run in, and I was so glad to get to meet you in person and hang out with you and get to know you better down there.
Likewise, it was a wonderful space to get a chance to meet
Oh my
and
god,
hang out. And
that was a
uh,
fun weekend. Have you gone back to Sex Down South?
I haven't been actually since then. I did go every year for a while, but I haven't been able to go. I've actually been going to the conference that I just got back from,
Which we will talk about
which
for
is,
sure.
yeah, a really exciting conference as well, but not quite as big as Sex Down South. So
Yeah, that was a
I'm gonna try to go
big.
next year.
Yes, same here. Same here. It is on my 2025 list of conferences to go to. A lot of listeners might not know what we do behind the scenes to both learn more and connect with other sexologists and to grow our practice and bring new and exciting topics and knowledge to our clients. But that is absolutely something that we do regularly is go to conferences.
Yes, that's one of my favorite parts of what we do. It's a big recharge for me. So.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because there's not that many of us out there. So any chance to get us all in the same room, or even people that are sort of adjacent to what we do,
Right.
yeah, it can be both an educational and spacey time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
Yep.
perfect combo.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so today I invited Julia on because I also interviewed her for my recent column about role play. So we're definitely going to be talking about role play. We're going to talk a little bit about kink, BDSM, dungeons, conversations around boundaries, all the things. So part of me's like, gosh, where do we start? But
Right.
so with role play, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around role play. When I'm talking to my clients at first, they often see role play as being the really passe things that dressing up as the French maid or, these semi inappropriate power exchanges between somebody who, like, think about teacher student, like,
Right. Boss
there's boss
secretary.
secretary, right? And when I say teacher student, I try to go for more like college professor, college student, like let's keep it
Right.
right. Like some of these things can be very taboo.
Hmm.
Other things are just so overdone. Again, like the French maid. I think about that. Some people really think that's sexy, and other people think, ugh, that's just been done. But they also often have misconceptions about how intricate these scenarios need to be. That you've got to have scripts and you've got to make it some big fanfare.
Right.
So let's talk about some of those myths to start off with there. What do you think are some of the biggest myths that you're helping your clients dispel?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest problems that I run into with clients, just in general about their sex life often, is this barrier where they don't maybe see themselves as imaginative enough or creative enough for role play or for really expanding their ideas about what sex is and can be, making it a more playful, creative experience. If I use a word like creative, often people will be like, oh my
I'm not
God, I don't
creative.
know
I don't
about
know.
that. That's not me. I'm not creative. Yes, you are. You already have this inside of you. It's okay. Like, but
Deep
we do
breath.
need to kind of work into getting to a place where people can let go of these outside expectations of how they are supposed to be in the bedroom in order for them to feel into what they actually want. Because that's where our creativity comes in. It's in listening to what do I want? It's in, paying attention to outside sources and getting inspiration, getting that creative inspiration from others. That's where we can start to lean into, this is what I would like to do. You don't have to make it all up. You don't have to write
Right.
yourself a script. Let's go read some smut. Go look at
Yes.
some GIFs, watch a scene, go to a club, whatever. Get some creative inspiration and feel into, ooh, what do I want? That's where you get your own creativity.
Yes, yes. I think that we can look back around, oh, what was it, a decade ago, and look at the phenomenon around 50 Shades of Grey and what that book did for just getting people's perspectives to change about kink and about BDSM. Now, granted, there's some problematic things in there, but it was a gateway drug, right? It was a gateway book series.
Absolutely.
Provided in
Absolutely.
so much inspiration for people.
It was a lot of permission giving for people.
Yes.
I think more than anything, right? I agree. There's a lot of problems with how things are done in the book. And
Right.
you'll find that in most books that are for smut, right? They're
Yeah.
for entertainment. They're
Yeah.
not
They're
really
authors. They're not.
educational.
Yeah, they're not experts like us. Although maybe we should be writing more smut. I don't know, but
Right. So like go read your
other
smut
income
and then
streams.
talk to us, okay?
Yeah, yeah. But like, yes, we even have a romance bookshop here in Kansas City,
Nice. That's
and
great.
some of it, I think, too, to make the distinction amongst that, there's romance. Doesn't have to involve sex. And we say smut, often, yes, there's some elements of sex, kink, things like that. But gosh, within the romance genre, there's every possible fantasy you could think of, from, just the neighbor, the bodice ripper historical stuff, things that would require a costume if you wanted to play it out, things that are very modern and you can just wear the lingerie that's in your drawer,
Right,
right?
right. Or nothing.
Or
All good.
nothing. Even
Use your
better.
imagination.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, I often say that you don't really know what you like until you've got some sort of a taste of it. That can be you heard something that made you kind of tingle or sit up straight and go like, wait, what's that? You see something visually represented that, again, when you're leaning in, rather than going, oh my, that's when it's time to start paying attention and go like, perhaps that's something to add to the list.
Absolutely, absolutely. I actually created an online course that is just for helping you figure out what you're into, what you like sexually. So for that reason. But absolutely part of the abbreviated advice I would give is listen to audio erotica, read smut, look at visuals, do all of those things to get the info that you're saying. We need that input in order to check like, ooh, does that do something for me? That is where we get it. We're not supposed to just like imagine everything from our brain all on our own. That's not what being imaginative or creative is
Right.
about. We're not expecting that of you all.
Right, right. Just start with the basics. Start with a
Yes.
concept. Start with something that made you go, ooh, that's juicy.
Exactly. But listening
Yeah.
to that, ooh, that's juicy, instead of like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel that. Ooh, oh, what was that? Put that away quick.
Right, right. That releasing of judgment. Well then, what do you think are some of the ways that people can move away? I guess sometimes I say it's not just about being positive about something, totally into it, but somewhere between judgment and being totally into it is neutrality. So, what are some of the ways that you move people away from judging themselves for their fantasies into either something more neutral or even leaning positive?
Yeah, I think that we know from the research that one of the antidotes to shame is compassion, self-compassion in particular, and part of the key to that is curiosity. Curiosity is actually the antidote to judgment. It's not like, oh, I have to get a different judgment. I have to
Right.
be positive about this instead of negative. Like, that's not the answer. It's actually approaching things with curiosity, asking questions like, ooh, I have this feeling about this. Why, where might this message come from that's making me feel bad about it? Or, why,
Why should I
instead of a
feel
why
bad
question.
about this?
Right, right.
Who
Yeah.
told me that I shouldn't be into this?
Or even just asking questions about, like, oh, is this something that I want to think about again sometime? I
Yeah.
don't have to tackle this whole thing right now. This made me feel a little tingle. I'm not ready to deal with all that right in this moment, but is this something I'd like to come back to and revisit and think about further? Huh, that little twinge of curiosity instead of judgment, that can really take us far places in the long run.
Absolutely. Yes. Um that middle ground, like you say, I think that's the most important place to be, because like you say that even if you're positive, it's still judgment, right? And that's what people want oftentimes, though, in order to allow themselves
Right.
to try something. And yeah, I'm like you. I try to caution them away from that. Like, where's the middle space where there's no judgment whatsoever? Where's the middle space where that thing can just exist and you can ponder it, you can explore it without
Yes.
having to feel a way about it that's good or bad.
Absolutely. I think that's a great like first step. But I think the other big thing that I find to be really helpful for me personally throughout my journey, and because, I've had to go through all of this too at different points in life in different ways of dealing with judgment and shamey messages and things like that, my own erotic exploration. We're, as sexologists, we're still sexual creatures too, and we've dealt with our own issues. And so, both on a personal level and a professional level, the other thing that I think is so, so crucial to that process of acceptance and exploration is being in community, finding community in some type of way. And so I know I'm excited to talk with you today about the BDSM community. But I think even if we're just talking online spaces and talking about community in that sort of way, then there's also just a lot of positivity that happens. But yeah, I think that community is so crucial for us in being able to give ourselves that acceptance and compassion and love and be able to explore safely because we're humans, right? We're meant to be social creatures. We're not meant to be completely independent and isolated from others. And
Right.
so it is important to see that other people have similar interests as us, that other people are also into this weird out there stuff, which everybody is on some level. There was just that I saw something by Justin, I can't remember his last name. He's the sex researcher for
Lay
the Kinsey
Miller?
Institute. Yeah, Leigh
Yeah.
Miller, thank you. And he had posted just a really simple meme about, or a piece of info about how kink is really a spectrum, right? It's not like you're kinky or vanilla. Everybody's into different things. We all have different buttons that
Yeah.
push our desires, right? And so everybody's into something different or weird or out there on some level or another. So finding that community, finding those people that validate that for you and are like, yeah, me too. You're all good. You're fine. You're acting consensually. You're
Yes.
not harming people. Do you. Go for it. Yay. That
Yes.
encouragement, that love from others, that acceptance from others, I think is so crucial to this process, whether that's an in-person thing or it's even just online and you're in
Yes.
some Facebook group for smut lovers or you're
Yeah. Or you're on FetLife or
you're
some
on
other site.
FetLife, whatever it is that gives you that sense of like, oh, look at how many other people are similar to me.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I love guiding people towards finding community for whatever fantasy or kink it is that they are looking for. Here in Kansas City, people are often shocked to find out that we have not one dungeon, but two. One's working through renovations, but like there's also places that host private parties that aren't necessarily public open dungeons that you can pretty easily find online.
In Kansas City.
I know, in Kansas City of all places, right? Um,
A
you
good
know,
Midwestern place.
yeah, all the churches.
Everywhere.
There's definitely people who were at the dungeon on Saturday and church services Sunday morning.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
And that's fine. This is not like
absolutely.
anti-values or anti-morality, right? I think that's one of the big myths with BDSM and
Hmm.
just eroticism in general, right? Like people often kind of have this fear that the way that they are in their daily lives needs to be like how they are in their eroticism as well, in the
Hmm.
bedroom, right? They're
Hmm.
like, ooh, I don't want to say this thing that is a bad word.
Hmm.
Ooh, I don't want to treat this person in this way that, oh, that might be disrespectful. Well, yeah, that would be disrespectful if you did that at work. That would be disrespectful if you did that,
Hmm.
in front of the kids. That would be disrespectful, right? Like that would
Yeah.
be awful if you did that here, 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 here. And if that's what both of you want to do in your private space, like that's no longer disrespectful.
And it's up to you to negotiate what you consider to be okay and what you consider to not be okay. And I think what you're talking about there too is like what degradation or things like that, or
Even
some sort of
just
like
basic.
contact. Like you're not going to smack someone on the ass,
Yep,
when you're walking through the grocery store, but
exactly.
grabbing a paddle and smacking them behind closed doors or in the club, things like that, very different,
Like
right?
exactly, exactly. Even just the words that we use, right? Like
Yes.
sometimes I'm working with people who are on this level of like, ooh, I can't even really say words for genitals that sound sexy or feel good to me,
Hmm.
right? Because, ooh, I learned that that's bad. So sometimes we're even starting from working with like getting you
Yeah.
more comfortable with the idea of sex and eroticism and being vocal about that from the get-go. Even
Yeah.
just that can be really hard for some folks.
Yes. Yes, it can. I mean, I've definitely had people in my office who at first come in whispering proper names, like they'll whisper penis or whisper vagina. And, we work through things where at the end they're saying things like, I actually want to call it cock. I want to talk about it like my cock. And that is a beautiful transition, taking somebody from whispering penis to being like, I love my cock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's so fun
Exactly.
what we do, honestly.
It is. It's amazing.
It's
But
powerful.
absolutely,
It's
we can
powerful.
get to that other like more extremes of like, oh, degradation play or serious power play, right? When we're
Yeah, let's
talking
talk
about
about it since I brought
taboo,
it up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's talk
taboo
about it.
topics, right? Of like, let's say you're role playing the teacher student thing. Obviously, I am one of the most vocal, hardcore advocates for sexual rights of young people, and that means also protecting them, right? Like,
Same.
I'm 100% never, ever, ever going to work with somebody who is exploiting anybody in any
Same.
way. Like, that
Same.
is
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
hard boundary, zero tolerance. Like,
Right.
no, no, no. And if you want to role play that, you and your adult partner, like, cool, right? That's your
Right.
thing. Absolutely. Role play that. Like, that feels good for both of you? Yes.
And
That's not the
figuring,
same thing.
yes, figuring out how to make it work. How do you make it feel like you two are the ones that are in control of the situation and it's not about other people's thoughts and feelings bearing on the situation?
Right, right. Yeah.
Because
I,
there's some things about like tapping into the taboo and tapping into eroticism that, yeah, a lot of outside people could judge us for our thoughts and feelings, our private thoughts and feelings. Yet we as human beings can find space where stuff resides in fantasy, right? If we want to role play teacher student, that doesn't mean we want to go out and do something in the real world with other people or to a mic. It's not.
Right.
It's
Right.
not about it being about anything outside of this very specific context.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the things that I think is really permission giving for folks sometimes when they are starting to get their fantasy out there, off their chest, so to speak, is that permission that, like, you don't have to do anything with this fantasy. Like, just because you have a fantasy doesn't mean you have to do it either. Even if you, like, are excited to talk about it finally, that doesn't mean you have to take it into the world of action either.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything bad about you that you have a taboo fantasy, right? Like, there's a big difference between action in the real world and fantasy. And so I think people understanding that better and, you know, recognizing, like, everybody has fantasies and all of us have some level of taboo in that fantasy. That can be really permission giving as well. I don't have to do anything with this. I can just enjoy it on this level if I want to. If I want to enjoy it on some other level, I can figure out how to negotiate that and how to do that safely and respectfully.
Yes. All of that. You mentioned something through that, which is how do you negotiate, right? We, when it comes to just our day-to-day sex lives or intimacy, when we're in partnership, there's a lot of things that we don't discuss. We don't negotiate what positions we're going to do before we get started. We don't negotiate, how long. We don't necessarily talk about safety words or things like that. Or maybe we've already had some preliminary conversations early in our interactions with our partner and we just have some things that are set, right? Negotiating a scene, I don't recommend doing it that way, right? I'm sure you don't either. There's some elements to not just the first time you're playing with a partner, whether it's your actual intimate partner or it's somebody who is a top that you trust, or even a bottom that you trust. There needs to be negotiation overall for what power exchange you two are going to have, period. And then there has to be, if you're having ongoing scenes, conversations about what's going to happen now, what's going to happen today.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you recommend? Say you've just met someone who's a top or a bottom. We say playing a scene. That means maybe you're going to the dungeon. You're meeting at each other's house and you're gonna do the things, which can vary. What are some of the top things that you recommend to your clients or, to your clients before they get going with a new partner?
Yeah, I mean, I think that typically what educators start with telling people is like, start with your boundaries, start with, what you definitely want, start with what you definitely don't want, negotiate from there. And I think that those two things are crucial, like making sure that you're both sharing hard no's and things that you really, really, really want, things you're really hoping for is really important. But I also think that we often undersell the idea of making sure we're on the same page about the energy and feelings of the scene. I think we actually need to start with the energy and feelings that we want from an experience, because that's why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
Emotions are what motivate all of us at the end of the day. And so if we're not touching on that part at all, say you and I are going to negotiate a spanking scene, right? If I'm just like, spanking, cool, like, let's do this. There's a lot of details we need to negotiate there.
Sensual? Do you want really primal? Do you want to be, like I mentioned earlier, degraded? Do you need something to be
Is this
said
a
to you?
punishment scene?
Yeah.
Right. Is this a lovey-dovey scene? Is this, right? Like,
right?
Is this a you've been naughty scene? Like, what? So many details we need to negotiate if we want to make this really good.
Yes. Yes.
And so safety is the basics, like at least do the safety part, right?
Yeah. Yes, totally.
Make sure you both know what you're doing. If you're doing something like an impact scene, a spanking scene, flogging, something like that, obviously there's like physical safety basics
Yes.
that we need to know to start with. Places you absolutely can't hit, but additionally for this person, are there places they don't want touched? Are there places that are sensitive, or do they have any injuries, any positions they can't be in, right? We have those physical safety basics, but we also have the emotional safety basics
Yeah.
of any triggers I should know about, words I shouldn't say, words I should say, ways that I should touch you. Like, for example, I'm a person who can't get tickled. This is like physical / emotional. Don't tickle me. I'm gonna freak out and like punch you. It's not okay. I have horrible physical reaction to tickling. No,
Off
no. Right? There's certain words that like, oh yeah, I would love it if this person said that to me. This person can't say that to me.
Yeah.
There's other words where like, yes, absolutely say this to me. That's going to help me get into this scene, right? So there's a million different elements that we want to talk about. Ideally, we can't talk about all of that all the time necessarily with a new person for a 15-minute scene we're going to have.
Right. And also, in that moment, when there's a good working relationship there, again, whether this is your primary partner or this is someone you are playing with, you should, even as the bottom, be able in the moment to say no. And they'll just move past it. And maybe there's a conversation later so that you don't have to stop what you're doing. But yeah, maybe there are times where you've got to push pause and say, hey, I'm totally okay with you calling me a dirty little slut, but you call me a bitch one more time and we're done.
Right. Great example.
I don't put up with that. Don't put up with that. Call me your sexy little baby, not your dirty little... I just don't like bitch. That's my big one. I'm not your bitch. I'll make you my bitch because I'm a switch and I'll like change it up on you real quick. Yeah.
So I want to follow up and like utilize the fact that I'm here with another sexologist expert, BDSM, knows all the things, because I don't want people to feel overwhelmed by all the things that I listed out of like, you should talk about all of these things in order to negotiate a scene. Do you have, Kristen, kind of a short list of these are things that you have to discuss before a scene?
I definitely think the starting from no, especially when you know XYZ, not into these things, right? But then going into your yeses, but like I think laying the foundation to say this is the type of scene that I have in mind, such as its impact, its temperature, its fire, its medical, whatever, right? We gotta, some things can overlap within those, but then obviously safe words. Right? Like, what am I physically capable of? I've got a bad back and I broke my tailbone a few years ago, so hard impact is a real big no for me, but I like some impact and I like some sounds and I don't like other sounds. I also think that negotiating what do you think you're going to want for aftercare, because maybe I'm going to want something that you're not going to want to give me. Like, if I want cuddles and for you to, like, brush my hair afterwards and you're like, no, I've got to find something else for you to make me feel my calm down. So yeah, I think those are the main things that I go over. And also, I guess I'll say this, since I think we all know this, that confidence is key, both for the top and the bottom. I think that confidence comes from having the conversations. Right? When we have questions left about how is this going to work? How is this going to feel? What's it going to look like? Can they give me what I'm looking for? That reduces our confidence, right? It increases our fear, our trepidation. And then we also, when there's not clarity, there's a lot of space for things to go in a direction that you didn't expect. So give yourself the space that, like, when you're new to this, that some things can't come up that you were not prepared for. And
Yes.
it's okay to speak up in the moment. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say yes. And it's okay if something happened that you tried and you just didn't end up enjoying it and you don't ever want to do it again. Right?
Absolutely. That's so crucial. And I think that even if you're not new to this, that happens sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even if
Yeah.
it's something that you have done before, maybe today was not the day for many, many reasons that could be possible, and you're just not feeling it, or the way that it's happening today is not working for you. And that's why I think, I think we're like forming our short list now. We need to be able to talk about what you're looking for from the
Mm-hmm.
scene, hard no's, hard yeses, but also not just safe words, but what does it look like when you're not okay,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you
right?
get
Because sometimes we're not
quiet?
able to remember to use this part of our brain,
Mm-hmm.
especially if we're already deep in the scene. We're not able to say that safe word
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Yeah.
also having a sense, especially if it's somebody that we play with regularly or if it's our partner, right? Then, ooh, if I'm doing this, I'm probably not okay. If I
Mm-hmm.
go so
Yeah.
totally silent on you, or if I am making more noise than normal, right? People's okays and not okays can look so different.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that
if someone
and that's
starts
the therapist.
breathing real heavy, like they're breathing through the pain, maybe that means they are doing great and they're getting to their space, but maybe that means they are reaching their threshold and they're just trying to hang on because their top's continuing to go, right? There's
Absolutely.
you do get to know both yourself and each other when you're playing regularly, and yeah, I think that those are all good things to start with. And like it did lead me to think, Julia, kinks can develop from a young age. For example, it turns out that a lot of girls who were into Wonder Woman really like bondage. Also, some like kids that played cops and robbers. There's often ties between who was top and who was bottom now. Who like to get tied up versus who like to do the tying up, right? Or the capture versus captured, primal play, right?
Hmm.
But sometimes we don't tie things back until much later when we've grown up, we've given ourselves permission, we've gotten some exposure.
Right.
But where or when did you figure out, like, maybe there's something to me that's a little bit kinkier than my peers? Because not everybody gets out there and participates in going to the dungeon, nor teaching kink classes, even from a sex education standpoint. So, when did you start letting your kinkier side come out?
Absolutely, absolutely. Great question. I think that I actually knew that I was kinky way before I knew like a whole bunch of other stuff about sex.
Really? Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Sexologists always have very interesting relationships with sex throughout their lives, so I always love hearing these stories.
absolutely, I didn't know that that was what it was called. Like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know anything yet about BDSM or kink. But like I definitely had, kind of tingles from before I was a sexual, before I had any kind of sexual experiences. I had
Mm-hmm.
like kind of weird what now I'm like, oh, that was kind of BDSM themes of power play and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Before any sexual anything. And like, no, this was not childhood sexual abuse, like none of that. This was
Right.
not inappropriate at all. This was just like real humanness, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then when I was a teenager, I read smut and I read
Mm-hmm.
some very kinky old school smut that was like, oh, 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 this, whoa, totally like blew my mind, blew my pants off kind of thing. Like, totally amazing, like next level. Oh, I want this,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I was still like young enough that I had no idea how to get that or like even who was into that.
Mm-hmm.
And who I could play with, like how that would be possible. Um, I grew up before Google, and so there was no FetLife that
Isn't
I
it
knew
funny we have
about.
to say that? There was no Google when I was a teen.
Right. I couldn't be like,
There were no
where
cell
do I
phones.
find this?
Right.
And so for me, I did eventually like go to the bookstore and I found some books on like S&M. It was called S&M. I didn't even hear the term BDSM until later. Um, and so I started finding things out, but it was all totally theoretical because I couldn't find my community. Like, I didn't know anybody else who was openly like, oh yeah, I'm into this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very like long, slow process for me between like the theoretical, like, oh, I know that I'm into this, but I don't know how I would or could like ever put any of this into practice in my real life. It was all just like fantasy world for me
Mm-hmm.
until I finally did find community and find other folks, and but it took a while.
I was less of a reader and more of a cinephile. And the first time I watched Secretary, I was
I
like,
remember seeing that. Yeah, that had an impact on me too.
that movie was wild.
Mm-hmm.
Wild. And again, definitely some problematic stuff in it. A lot of media always shows some problematic sides to kink and BDSM, but like, because there was some non-consensual stuff. He did not ask her to get started with that, right? But that was my first foray into seeing a representation of kink and BDSM that made me go like, well, that's something. I was more on like, I think I would want to do that to somebody rather than have it done to me. But man, I judged myself so hard for a while thinking about what it would be like to be a top, what it would like to be a dom, and to inflict pleasurable pain on somebody or something that they wanted done to them. Again, probably just because I was seeing those representations that were less than consensual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What are some
absolutely.
good
I
movies
think
that
also
have done
the
it
other
well?
thing I would say about Secretary is
Mm-hmm.
that when I saw that, I can remember I feel like it's a movie that like erotically is fabulous. Like I love that movie for its eroticism. Like I think it's really hot. And I think it's a movie that absolutely played up that sort of idea, that stereotype that people who are into BDSM are like mentally unstable, they're not really okay, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
clearly the young woman in the movie had like started out the scene with showing her mental health issues,
Mm-hmm.
and then right like I and that's problematic, I think, because that is a stereotype.
Yeah.
The research now shows that, yeah, of course, some people who like BDSM also have mental health issues. Welcome to the world, right?
Some
Like,
people
you're
who
not a
don't
bad
like
person
kink
if you
have
have
mental
mental
health
health
issues.
issues.
So,
Right, exactly. It's not like all people who are into BDSM are so because they had sexual abuse or they have other mental health issues or that like that's not accurate at all. Like people have mental health issues in the world. Yes, this is part of our reality in life. That doesn't make you a bad person. And that's not there's not a direct correlation there and there's definitely not causation. So,
right. Right. Yeah, I run into it less within my practice. People assuming, oh, if you're into kink, then something's quote unquote wrong with you. Whether that was, as you said, childhood abuse experiences or mental health issues. It's usually online. It's
mm,
usually people who are
mhm.
just either trolling or highly uninformed or have a superiority complex.
Right.
So
Right.
right, my trolls get to me though when they start being like, "Oh, it's because of your daddy issues."
Mm, can't stand that.
I cannot stand that. I cannot stand that. For one thing, let's stop framing it as daddy issues. Let's start framing it as a father didn't show up for their child, and that is not my issue. right?
Right.
That's an
Right.
issue with the parent.
Yes.
People who are kinky aren't trying to always recontextualize things, but sometimes kink does help people recontextualize things that have occurred in their life.
And that can be such a beautiful thing.
Hell, there's people that, I mean, we look for all sorts of ways to heal. We look for all sorts of ways to recontextualize. We look for ways to forget, no
Yep.
matter what we have been through. Some of us accomplish that through travel. Some of us do it through therapy. Some of us do it through sex. Some of us do it through drugs. Right? Like, there's
Yeah.
lots of ways we may choose to heal or figure ourselves out. And when we are doing it safely, and consensually, that is our prerogative.
Right. Or at least risk aware, fully
Risk
informed.
aware, that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say safe in that, like, I think about, I use drugs as an example there. There's things like never use alone hotlines.
Right.
There's states where you can go use something in a group, but there's also, like, I don't know. I'm of the mindset we should be able to do what we want when we want safely. Black markets are what make us unsafe when it comes to drugs. But,
Right. And
alcohol
sex
does.
is often shame that often keeps us from being safe, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. There's so much in our society that I hope to see shift through the years. Clearly, you and I are part of trying to do that work to remove sexual shame and taboo from our society, but we are just two people. We can only do so much, but we are trying.
I want to shout out, though, like, speaking of we're just two people and other sexologists doing this work, I learned so much of what I know about BDSM from reading and following Midori and attending workshops with her. I attended a workshop with her at Sex Down South before. She is brilliant and amazing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
huge, like, credit, shout out, love, gratitude to Midori and all the other, like, kink positive, sex positive educators out there in the universe. Like,
Yes.
the world needs all of us. Thank you for existing and doing this work. It is not always easy.
No, it's not. It's not. Midori is very well known in our industry, and yeah, I also can't say enough. I've not gotten the chance to take a class with her except online. She's got a course or two on beducated.com. There's a few like phenomenal. In fact, I think Lucy Rowett, a colleague of ours from Sex Coach U, has a course on there. So yeah, there's ways to, if you are listening and you want to work with a coach, obviously, like, hey, you've got us too. But, some people can never imagine themselves talking to somebody personally about their stuff. And there's ways to glean good education from taking online classes. Find like Julia's website, find Midori's website, find some resource online. But the point is, find somebody to guide you through this that you can trust, who has the knowledge, who has the ethics to teach you everything that you need to know so that you can feel informed and empowered and curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So well said. Right. When I think about all the years that it took me from reading that book and shaming myself over what I was into to, like, get to a point of feeling really good and really empowered and being able to find a partner who was compatible with what I wanted and respectful and fabulous, right? Like, whew, that's a long trajectory. And it would have been so much easier if I had had access to something like the work that you and I do, right?
Yeah.
Totally different universe.
Yeah. In addition, if you're listening to this, we, Julia and I here, and every other sex educator out there, need you to join us in the fight against online censorship. against the work that we do, whether it's on meta platforms. That's why I have this podcast, so we can speak freely about our sex lives, about intimacy, about pleasure, and about our fantasies. And there's a lot of spaces we can't say most of what we've said on this podcast, right? This is going to be on YouTube, and that's fine, but a lot of what we've talked about today, I can't put on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. And it's not that we said anything all that obscene or graphic or out of pocket. We just face a lot of censorship these days. So please help us fight against online censorship so that we can help reduce stigma and taboo around these topics.
Mm-hmm. So needed.
I know. It is.
And that's also like, get on Kristen's email list. Get on my email list. Like, I barely even post to social media anymore because it's too frustrating. But I will send you an email every week. I'll send you my memes. I'll send you funny stuff. I'll send you strategies. Like, let's keep in touch over email and this YouTube channel and all of those things.
Yes.
So much better.
Yeah, I mean, it's National Kink Awareness Month, and I've been trying to do Kinktober posts. They keep getting taken down. Like, I've gone over them with a fine-tooth comb trying to make sure everything is censored. I'm, talking around the topic, but yeah, I mean, I'm talking about kinks. When one of my posts only had 1 like after 48 hours, I start digging through a meta on the back end, and they just didn't even push it out. So I had to take it down because it was also a knock against my account.
Right.
So, I don't know. They're probably not going to like my next post that I put up about Kinktober, but I'm going to try it anyway. We'll see. So, but I guess, if you are kinky and you want more Kinktober content, get on our email lists. Check the show notes so you can get on my Dirty Bird email list. So yeah, whether you are into furries, you are into costumes, you are into wanting to go do like a stranger scenario. There's so many ways to role play, and it just takes a little bit of confidence, a little bit of curiosity, and some conversations, and you can be successful with it. So I guess that brings us to our last segment, which is Ask Coach Kristen Anything. So again, this can be get my opinion on something. This could be you and some friends were chatting, or just maybe it's about something that has to do with sex in the news and what's going on in the world. But what's your question for me? And you can ask me something personal too. I'm an open book. So
thank you. I love Ask Me Anything questions. It's such a fun idea.
Thank you.
I am curious, since we're talking about role play, I'm going to give you 2 options.
Okay.
So you can think about what personal level you want to get. I'm curious either what your favorite kind of role play is for yourself, or what's a role play you still haven't done but would like to.
I guess the last one. What's a role play that I still haven't played out but would like to? I really do want to try the stranger. Maybe that's why I brought it up. The stranger fantasy, where like my husband and I go meet out and about somewhere and pretend like we don't know each other. He's got to come up and flirt with me at the bar or something. I don't know. I saw it in 4 Christmases with Reese Witherspoon and Vince Vaughn. The opening scene, basically. And I was just like, that is hot. I don't necessarily want to have sex in the bathroom, because I'm less of a exhibitionist. But I think that just the idea of pretending to, I guess, be myself but not know him, and the role play of flirtation, the role play of trying to capture this person's attention enough for them to want to take me home or to get my number or whatever. I think when I was single, I did kind of like that rush of meeting somebody and catching their attention or vice versa, and the flirtation. that aspect was always
Exactly.
like, ooh, I loved that hotness, that new hotness, that sizzle.
The flirtation piece, I think,
Yeah.
is so crucial in that sort of role play.
Yeah.
When you're in a long-term relationship with somebody, especially if you're monogamous with that
Hmm.
person, even if you're not, right? But if you are monogamous, particularly, oof, finding ways to add in flirtation and novelty, crucial. And if that's
Yes.
working, like, yes.
Yeah, and I think it's so like it's an atypical date night, right? We're still going out. We're still either grabbing a drink or grabbing food or something like that. But we don't have to talk about like the minutia of our life that night.
Right.
We don't have to talk about the bills or
Yes.
an argument that we were trying to get over, anything like that. We can just make up something and I don't know. It seems so hot, and I have talked to him about it. He is down for it. We just haven't done it. He is a naturally flirtatious person. In fact, he's worked from home for so long. He has said one of the reasons he misses working in an office is he doesn't have hotties to flirt with. And that goes for men and women. He'll flirt with anybody. He's just a flirt. He likes being that person that's charismatic and that people find attractive, even if he doesn't want to do anything with them. He's got that little like I can flirt and I can just make you want me kind of thing. He's so
Nice.
funny. I love my husband so much. He's so adorable.
Aw.
But I want to see what he does to try to flirt with me and woo me. And yeah, because the way that we connected was through online dating. So there was already that, like, we're meeting up for a date.
Right.
But yeah, the idea of what would it have been like if I had just met him in the wild? If he had just spotted me and wanted to talk to me, what would he have said or done? Like, I want to play that out.
Now I want this date too. Now I'm like, oh, I'm about to text my partner.
Yeah, right?
I'm like, you made this sound even more appealing. Yes.
Yeah, and like maybe once I played, I'd be like, okay, cool, that's nice. We've done it. Let's try something else. Or maybe this will be something that will be periodic for us to just
Yeah.
spice it
I
up
love
from
the
time to
idea
time.
of making it periodic, right? Like every so often we have this date where we can't talk about the minutia of life. We're not talking about the bills because we're doing this other fun thing.
Yes, yes. I will say I did find through the course of doing my research for my article, it's actually a local Kansas City company called Faithful Fling. I'll say this. At first, I was like, I want to check them out before I like give them too much of a plug. But like, it's
Right.
not about, it's not a churchy thing. It's just for monogamous couples. Sometimes people think a role play scenario might involve other people, and it does not have to. If you wanted to, that's for you two to
Right.
negotiate, right? Maybe you're going to pick up a third at the restaurant. But like for a lot of people, it's just about this couple and them wanting to have something fresh and nuanced. And so it's an online platform. You're paying for like a certain amount of fantasy role play sessions a month or a year, and then they give you everything that you need. They give each of you like your own separate lists of what you got to buy or be prepared for. They also like tell you, okay, your partner does not know these things. That's for you to know, so you can play it out in a way that doesn't have to like you don't have to check in with each other before you are role playing. It's sort of like they give each of you your things.
That's
It
really
seems really neat.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll share that with you.
Yeah, please do. Thank
Maybe
you.
I need to get them on the show.
Right?
Right? Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. And I mean, anything that can make it a little bit easier, especially for folks that, if you're so intimidated by the idea of role play that you're avoiding it, that could be a great tool to get you into it. So, yeah, I'm going to check them out sometime. Maybe after we
Absolutely.
do our stranger role play, Matthew will be like, okay, I want more of this.
Yes.
He
Sounds
tends to
good.
be that kind of guy. Once I expose him to something, he's like, more, more, more. Like, I took him for a pedicure last week for his birthday. It's his first pedicure he's ever had. He's like, how do we afford this every week? I'm like, I don't even go every week. slow down and say once a month. Let's
Right.
go once
You're
a
like,
month.
that's a
Yeah.
great question. How do we afford this?
Right, right. I got him hooked on couples massage too after his first one. So yeah, I think once I have him do his first role play scenario, he might be hooked. So I won't have to drive
That's
anymore.
updated.
We'll see. I'll let you know. But thank you for that question.
My pleasure.
So, Julia, I have so appreciated our conversation today and appreciated you being one of my interviewees for the column. And of course, I want the listeners to be able to find you. Like you mentioned, you've got your email list. I know you're not doing much on socials these days, but hey, like still follow us on socials. But like, how do the listeners find you?
Yeah, they can check out my website and connect with me from there. It is pleasure-wise.com. Hopefully I can pass that over to you to put in the show notes as
Yep,
well.
absolutely.
They can sign up for my email list at tinyurl.com/pleasure practice. And download the free pleasure practice suggestion as well to get a little more mindful in your pleasure and moments of pleasure. And that practice is actually with chocolate, so it's nothing too scary for folks. Like to start off small. Also because I'm a chocolate obsessed person. It's a big important part of my life. But yeah, I would love to connect with folks and continue to connect with you. Thank you so much for having me on your awesome podcast, Kristen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being my guest. I wish you all the best, all the success in closing out the year and into 2025. And we should definitely chat offline about conferences for the year so that we can plan on seeing each other.
Definitely looking forward to it.
Great, great. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.